Imagine an empire. Not an empire of walled cities and iron armies, but a vast and complex domain stretching across much of East Asia. Ming Dynasty China. Picture the early 15th century, an era of prosperity, technological innovation, and a social order that seemed as eternal as the Great Wall itself. It was a realm of magnificent cities, a sophisticated bureaucracy, and a culture that considered itself the center of the civilized world. Yet beneath the surface of this apparent stability, a silent ferment began to bubble. The air was thick with a sense of impending change, that the balance of power was about to tip irreversibly. Far from the eyes of the Ming Empire, a vast new horizon was opening up at sea. A world of trade routes, exotic cultures, and limitless opportunities. China, once focused on its land borders, stood on the cusp of a seismic transformation, poised to embark on a quest for dominance and glory that would redefine the political and cultural geography of 3 continents. This is not merely a tale of emperors and kingdoms, but the saga of a civilization at its zenith, one that dared to look beyond its borders and into the vast ocean. And at the heart of this storm, an unexpected figure would emerge. A Muslim eunuch who, with his naval genius, diplomatic vision, and boundless ambition, would shape the destiny of entire nations, transforming the map of the maritime world and leaving a legacy that would echo for millennia. Zheng He. To understand the magnitude of Zheng He's expeditions and the vision behind them, it's essential to delve into the foundations of the Ming Dynasty. Founded in 1368 by Zhu Yuanzhang, or Hongwu Emperor, the Ming Dynasty had overthrown the Mongol rule of the Yuan Dynasty and restored native Chinese governance. The Ming Empire was, in the early 15th century, the largest and most powerful civilization in the world, a true celestial empire. Ming China was a hub of economic prosperity, technological innovation, and cultural flourishing. Agriculture formed the backbone of its economy, with vast cultivated lands and efficient irrigation systems. Internal and external trade thrived, with China exporting silk, porcelain, tea, and other luxury goods worldwide. Its population was immense, and its cities vibrant and cosmopolitan. Its administration was sophisticated and centralized, with an imperial bureaucratic system that extended throughout the empire. The emperor was the son of heaven, the supreme ruler, and his authority was unquestionable. The imperial examination system ensured that civil servants were selected by merit, not by birth. Ming China was also a center of technological innovation. They were pioneers in gunpowder production, papermaking, printing, metallurgy, and shipbuilding. Their naval technology, in particular, was the most advanced in the world, featuring large vessels and a navigational capacity that surpassed any other civilization. However, despite its grandeur, Ming China at times possessed an introspective mindset. After the expulsion of the Mongols, the dynasty focused on strengthening its land borders, building the Great Wall, and defending the empire from nomadic invasions. The primary focus was internal stability and defense against land threats, not maritime expansion. It would be within this context of a powerful but inward-looking empire that the figure of Zheng He would emerge, a man who dared to look out at the vast ocean.
While Ming China consolidated its terrestrial power, the Asian maritime world was a vast and complex stage of trade routes, diverse cultures, and intense naval activity. The Indian Ocean, in particular, was a vibrant center of commerce, connecting China with Southeast Asia, India, the Middle East, and East Africa. Maritime trade routes were vital to Asia's economy. Merchants from different cultures sailed these waters, exchanging spices, silk, porcelain, precious metals, and other goods. Port cities like Malacca, Calicut, Hormuz, and Mogadishu were cosmopolitan centers where various languages and religions intertwined. Southeast Asia was a mosaic of kingdoms and sultanates, many influenced by Indian and Islamic culture. India was a subcontinent of vast riches and diverse civilizations. The Middle East, with its empires and trade routes, connected Asia with Europe. And East Africa, with its coastal city-states, was a center for the trade of gold, ivory, and slaves. However, the Asian maritime world was also a place of piracy, conflicts, and rivalries among different kingdoms. The security of trade routes was a constant concern, and merchants and navigators needed protection. China, despite its superior naval technology, had largely withdrawn from long-distance maritime trade after the fall of the Yuan dynasty. Its naval fleet was primarily used to defend the coasts from pirates and to control coastal trade. It would be in the scenario of a vibrant maritime world, but without a dominant power, that Zheng He's expeditions would emerge, an act of power projection that would change how China related to the world.
It was against this backdrop of a rising Ming Empire and a bustling maritime world that, in 1371, in Yunnan Province, southwestern China, Ma He, the future Zheng He, was born. His origin was remarkable and in many ways would shape his destiny. He came into the world in a Muslim Hui family, a Chinese ethnic group with roots in Central Asia. His family had served the Yuan, Mongol dynasty, and boasted a lineage of pilgrims who had traveled to Mecca. His childhood was marked by tragedy. In 1381, when Ma He was just 10 years old, Yunnan Province, the last stronghold of Yuan loyalty, was conquered by Ming forces. During the conquest, his father was killed and Ma He was captured. As was common for boys captured in wars, he was castrated and became a eunuch in the service of the Ming imperial court. This castration, a brutal act that deprived him of his masculinity, was a traumatic event that would mark him forever. Despite the tragedy, his castration opened an unexpected path to advancement. Eunuchs, though socially marginalized, could achieve great power and influence in the Chinese imperial court, serving as advisors, administrators, and military commanders. Ma He, with his intelligence, loyalty, and skill, quickly distinguished himself among the eunuchs.
He was sent to serve Prince Zhu Di, the fourth son of the Hongwu Emperor, who would later become the Yongle Emperor. His relationship with Zhu Di would be crucial to his rise. Ma He was a loyal and talented eunuch, serving the prince with devotion. He accompanied him on his military campaigns and became one of his closest advisors. His Muslim background and his experience as a eunuch differentiated him from other court officials. He had an understanding of the Islamic world and its cultures, which would prove invaluable in his future expeditions. The stage was set for the emergence of a leader who, through his naval genius, diplomatic vision, and ambition, would transform the map of the maritime world and leave a legacy that would echo for millennia. His journey was just beginning, and the ocean awaited exploration by his fleet.
Ma He's childhood, the future Zheng He, was abruptly cut short by tragedy and castration, transforming him into a eunuch in the service of the Ming imperial court. However, this radical change in his life, though brutal, opened an unexpected path to advancement and an education that would shape his destiny. Far from being a life of purposeless servitude, the life of a eunuch in the Ming court could offer opportunities for those with talent and ambition. Ma He was sent to serve Prince Zhu Di, the fourth son of the Hongwu Emperor, who would later become the Yongle Emperor.
This relationship with Zhu Di would be crucial to his formation. The prince, a man of great energy and ambition, recognized the young eunuch's talent and intelligence. Ma He was exposed to a comprehensive education that went beyond basic eunuch training. He learned about Chinese history, Confucian classics, and the principles of imperial administration. His sharp mind and ability to quickly absorb knowledge made him stand out. He was also trained in the military arts, including horsemanship, archery, and the use of weapons. Although eunuchs were not traditionally military commanders, Zhu Di's trust in Ma He led him to participate in campaigns and learn about strategy and logistics.
Ma He's ascent in the Chinese imperial court was driven by his unwavering loyalty and his crucial participation in the rise of his patron, Prince Zhu Di, to the imperial throne. In 1399, Zhu Di launched a civil war against his nephew, the Jianwen Emperor, Hongwu's successor, claiming that Jianwen had usurped the throne and persecuted his uncles. This civil war, known as the Jingnan Campaign, lasted several years and was a period of great turbulence for China. Ma He played a vital role in the Jingnan Campaign. He served as one of Zhu Di's main military commanders, leading troops in battle and demonstrating his courage and strategic skill. He was a trusted eunuch who executed Zhu Di's orders with loyalty and efficiency. His participation in the civil war placed him in a prominent position at the prince's court. In 1402, Zhu Di successfully defeated the Jianwen Emperor, who mysteriously disappeared. Some say he fled, others that he died in the palace fire. Zhu Di ascended the imperial throne, proclaiming himself the Yonglei Emperor. His rise to power marked one of the most ambitious and expansionist reigns of the Ming dynasty. With Yonglei's ascension, Ma He was rewarded for his loyalty and services. He was appointed admiral of the imperial fleet and received a new name, Zheng He. The name Zheng was a tribute to his family's well in Yunnan, and He was a reference to his original name. His appointment as admiral was a remarkable feat for a eunuch, breaking traditional barriers that limited eunuchs' power to civil positions. His rise under the Yonglei Emperor was a testament to his military ability, his loyalty, and his capacity to win his emperor's trust. He was now one of the most powerful men in China, a favorite of the throne, and was ready to embark on a new mission that would lead him to explore the vast oceans and expand Chinese influence throughout the world. With his appointment as admiral, Zheng He was entrusted with a mission that would transform how China related to the world, to lead a series of maritime expeditions to the western oceans. To this end, the Yonglei Emperor ordered the construction of a naval fleet of unprecedented proportions, a fleet that would be the largest and most advanced in the world at the time, the treasure ships, or baochuan. The construction of the Grand Fleet was a colossal undertaking, requiring vast resources and the mobilization of thousands of workers. The treasure ships were gigantic compared to any other vessel of the era. Chinese historical sources describe the largest ships as being over 120 meters long and 50 meters wide, with 9 masts and 12 sails. They were built with high-quality wood, with multiple watertight compartments, a Chinese innovation that increased safety, and equipped with balanced rudders and iron anchors. Zheng He's fleet comprised hundreds of ships of different sizes and functions. Treasure ships, the largest vessels which carried imperial gifts, luxury goods for trade, and the riches obtained from the expeditions. Horse ships, which transported horses and supplies for troops. Supply ships, which carried food, water, and other provisions for the fleet. Warships, which protected the fleet from pirates and other threats. Chinese naval technology was the most advanced in the world in the 15th century. They used the magnetic compass for navigation, detailed maps, astrolabes, and other navigational instruments.
Their ability to build such large ships and navigate vast distances was unparalleled. The construction of the Grand Fleet was a testament to the Zheng He Emperor's ambition and his vision of projecting China's power and influence throughout the maritime world.
Between 1405 and 1433, Zheng He led 7 major maritime expeditions to the Western Oceans, a series of voyages that would transform how China related to the world and demonstrate the power and influence of the Ming Empire. These expeditions were not merely for trade or exploration, they were acts of diplomacy, power projection, and demonstrations of Chinese supremacy. Zheng He's first expedition departed from Nanjing in 1405 with a fleet of over 200 ships and around 27,000 men. His route took him to Southeast Asia, India, and Sri Lanka. In every port, Zheng He and his fleet were met with admiration and respect. He delivered imperial gifts, silk, porcelain, gold, and silver to local rulers, establishing diplomatic and commercial relations. The objectives of Zheng He's expeditions were multifaceted.
Power projection, to demonstrate the strength and wealth of the Ming Empire to foreign kingdoms, establishing Chinese supremacy in the maritime world. Establishment of diplomatic relations, to forge alliances, receive tribute, and ensure the loyalty of foreign kingdoms to China. Trade, to promote the trade of Chinese products, silk, porcelain, tea, and acquire exotic and valuable goods such as spices, precious stones, ivory, and exotic animals. Exploration, to map new maritime routes, gather information about unknown cultures and geographies, and expand Chinese knowledge of the world. Search for the Jianwen Emperor. Some historians suggest that one of the secret objectives of the expeditions was to find the Jianwen Emperor, who had disappeared after the Civil War, and ensure that he posed no threat to Yongblei's throne. Zheng He's expeditions were characterized by their diplomacy, but also by their ability to use force when necessary. He intervened in local conflicts, defeated pirates, and subjugated kingdoms that refused to cooperate. His fleet was a force for peace and order, ensuring the security of trade routes and protecting Chinese interests. Zheng He's early expeditions were a spectacular success. They established Chinese naval supremacy in the Indian Ocean, expanded Chinese influence throughout Asia, and brought back to China vast wealth and a myriad of exotic products, including giraffes, zebras, and other animals that had never been seen in China. Zheng He had become the greatest admiral in Chinese history, and his expeditions were a testament to the grandeur of the Ming Empire.
The 7 great expeditions of Zheng He to the Western Oceans were not mere voyages, but a complex network of routes and destinations that covered vast expanses of the Asian and African maritime world. His fleet, composed of hundreds of ships and tens of thousands of men, was a floating empire capable of navigating unknown seas and reaching distant lands long before the arrival of European explorers. Zheng He's routes stretched for thousands of kilometers, connecting China with Southeast Asia, the Indian Ocean, and East Africa. His expeditions did not follow a single path, but a series of interconnected routes, allowing the fleet to visit multiple ports and establish relations with various kingdoms. The main destinations of Zheng He's expeditions included
Southeast Asia, city-states and island kingdoms such as Champa, Vietnam, Java, Sumatra, Malacca, Malaysia, and Borneo. Malacca in particular became an important trading post and a strategic ally of China. Indian subcontinent, ports like Calicut, Cochin, and Goa on the southwestern coast of India. India was a center for spices, textiles, and precious stones, and trade relations with China were vital to its economy. Middle East, port cities like Hormuz in the Persian Gulf, Aden in Yemen, and Jeddah in Arabia, which was the gateway to Mecca. These cities were centers of luxury trade and connected China with the Mediterranean and European trade routes. East Africa, coastal city-states such as Mogadishu, Brava, Malindi, and Kilwa. Zheng He brought back to China exotic animals such as giraffes and zebras, which were received with admiration at the imperial court. Zheng He's expeditions were not just about reaching these destinations, they were about establishing a Chinese presence, projecting power, and ensuring the loyalty of foreign kingdoms to China. His fleet was a symbol of the Ming Empire's grandeur, and its arrival at a port was an event of immense diplomatic and commercial significance. He was the ambassador of an empire that considered itself the center of the world, and his mission was to bring Chinese order and harmony to the barbarians of the maritime world. His ability to navigate unknown seas, map new routes, and reach such distant lands was a testament to Chinese naval technology and Zheng He's skill as a navigator and explorer. He was drawing a new map of the world, one that placed China at the center of a vast network of trade and influence.
Zheng He's expeditions were, above all, acts of diplomacy and commerce, carefully orchestrated to project China's power and influence without the need for large-scale military conquest. The Yongle Emperor viewed the world as a hierarchical system, with China as the celestial empire at the center, and foreign kingdoms as its vassals who should pay tribute and recognize its supremacy. Zheng He's expeditions were the materialization of this vision. In every port, Zheng He and his fleet were met with admiration and respect. He delivered imperial gifts, silk, porcelain, gold, and silver, to local rulers, establishing diplomatic and commercial relations. The gifts were carefully chosen to reflect China's wealth and sophistication and to impress foreign leaders with the grandeur of the Ming Empire. In return, foreign rulers sent tribute to the Chinese imperial court, acknowledging China's supremacy and seeking the emperor's favor. The tributes included valuable local products such as spices, precious stones, ivory, and exotic animals. The arrival of these tributes in China was a spectacle of pomp and a demonstration of power, reinforcing the image of the Yongle Emperor as the ruler of the entire world.
Commerce was a vital component of the expeditions. Zheng He promoted the trade of Chinese products such as silk, porcelain, and tea, which were highly valued in foreign markets. He also acquired exotic and valuable products such as spices from India and Southeast Asia, precious stones from Sri Lanka, and ivory and exotic animals from Africa. Trade was not just for profit, it was a way to establish economic ties and promote interdependence between China and foreign kingdoms. Zheng He's diplomacy was based on persuasion and the demonstration of power, not brute force. He sought to establish peaceful and mutually beneficial relations, but was always ready to use force when necessary. His fleet was a force for peace and order, ensuring the security of trade routes and protecting Chinese interests. His expeditions were a testament to Yongle's vision of a China that related to the world through diplomacy and commerce, projecting its influence without the need for large-scale military conquest.
Although Zheng He's expeditions were predominantly diplomatic and commercial, he did not hesitate to use military force when necessary to protect Chinese interests, suppress threats, and enforce the authority of the Ming Emperor. His fleet was not just a symbol of peace, it was a formidable warfare force, capable of crushing any opposition. Zheng He intervened in local conflicts in various kingdoms, supporting rulers who were loyal to China and repressing those who opposed its authority. He was an arbiter of disputes, a peacemaker who imposed Chinese order in turbulent regions. His military intervention was often decisive, and his reputation for invincibility spread wherever he went. One of the most notable examples of his military intervention was his campaign against the pirate Chen Zuyi, who terrorized maritime routes in the Strait of Malacca. In 1407, Zheng He confronted Chen Zuyi's fleet, defeating him in a naval battle and capturing the pirate. Chen Zuyi was taken to China and executed, an act that ensured the security of trade routes and demonstrated China's ability to protect its maritime interests.
Zheng He also subjugated kingdoms that refused to cooperate or pay tribute to China. In 1411, he intervened in the kingdom of Kotte, Sri Lanka, where King Alakeshvara had refused to pay homage to China and had attacked Zheng He's fleet. Zheng He defeated Alakeshvara's army, captured the king, and took him to China. He appointed a new king who was loyal to China, ensuring the kingdom's submission. His military intervention was calculated and effective. He utilized the technological superiority of his fleet, with its cannons and firearms, to crush his enemies. He also employed diplomacy and persuasion, seeking to resolve conflicts peacefully before resorting to force. His fleet was a force for peace and order, ensuring the security of trade routes and protecting Chinese interests. Zheng He's projection of Chinese force was a testament to his military genius and his determination to enforce the Ming Emperor's authority.
Zheng He's return from his maritime expeditions was a spectacle of pomp and grandeur, a demonstration of the glory and wealth of the Ming Empire. His fleet, laden with treasures, exotic products, and envoys from foreign kingdoms, was met with popular acclaim and celebrations in Nanjing and Beijing. The tributes brought by foreign envoys were the highlight of the return. Kings and rulers from distant lands sent valuable gifts to the Yongle Emperor, recognizing China's supremacy and seeking the Son of Heaven's favor. The tributes included rare spices, precious stones, ivory, exotic textiles, and most famously of all, exotic animals, such as giraffes, zebras, ostriches, and lions, which had never been seen in China. The arrival of a giraffe, in particular, caused great admiration at the imperial court, being interpreted as a sign of good fortune and a prosperous reign. Foreign envoys were received with honors at the imperial court, participating in banquets and ceremonies. They had the opportunity to witness China's grandeur and to meet the Yongle Emperor. This exchange of gifts and diplomatic courtesies strengthened relations between China and foreign kingdoms, ensuring peace and trade.
His return was a moment of celebration for Zheng He and his crew. They were heroes who had traveled to the ends of the earth and brought glory and wealth to China. Zheng He was rewarded with honors and titles, and his reputation as the greatest admiral in Chinese history was solidified. The return and tributes were an essential part of Yongle's power projection strategy. They demonstrated China's wealth and influence to its own people and to the world. Its ability to attract tribute from distant kingdoms was a sign of its supremacy and authority. Zheng He's expeditions were not just voyages, they were a spectacle of power that glorified the Ming Empire and its emperor.
Zheng He's 7 great expeditions consolidated Chinese influence in vast regions of the maritime world, establishing a naval hegemony that would last for decades. Ming China, under the Yongle Emperor, projected its power and culture throughout Asia and East Africa, creating a maritime empire that, though ephemeral, was a testament to its grandeur. Chinese influence manifested in several ways. Diplomatic and trade. China established diplomatic relations with dozens of foreign kingdoms, promoting trade and cultural exchange. Chinese products were highly valued, and China became the center of a vast commercial network. Naval power. Zheng He's fleet was the largest and most advanced in the world, ensuring the security of trade routes and protecting Chinese interests. Its presence commanded respect,
and deterred pirates and rivals. Political intervention. China intervened in local conflicts, supporting loyal rulers and repressing those who opposed its authority, establishing Chinese order in turbulent regions. Knowledge and exploration. Zheng He's expeditions expanded Chinese knowledge of the world, mapping new routes, collecting information about unknown cultures and geographies.
However, Chinese influence in the maritime world would be ephemeral. After the death of the Yongle Emperor in 1424 and Zheng He in 1433, China's foreign policy changed drastically. Yongle's successors, influenced by conservative factions at court and a more isolationist view, decided to end the maritime expeditions. The treasure ships were destroyed, the records of the voyages were burned, and China withdrew from the global maritime scene. This decision, although controversial, was motivated by several factors: the high cost of the expeditions, the growing threat of the Mongols on the land borders, and the belief that China, as the celestial empire, did not need to seek the outside world. China turned inward, and its vastness and wealth would be protected by its land borders. The consolidation of Chinese influence by Zheng He was a unique moment in history. He demonstrated China's potential to be a global maritime power, but his vision was not continued by his successors. His legacy would be of an empire that, for a brief period, dominated the oceans, but then retreated into isolation, leaving the way open for other powers to explore and dominate the maritime world.
The 7 great expeditions of Zheng He, which had projected the power and influence of Ming China throughout the maritime world, were a remarkable feat. However, the era of exploration and naval projection would be ephemeral. Even during Zheng He's lifetime, and more acutely after the death of the Yongle Emperor in 1424, signs of the expedition's decline began to emerge, foreshadowing a drastic shift in Chinese foreign policy. The high cost of the expeditions was a growing concern. The construction and maintenance of such a vast fleet and the financing of expeditions involving tens of thousands of men and hundreds of ships required vast resources from the imperial treasury. Although the expeditions brought wealth and tribute, their cost-benefit was questioned by some sectors of the court. China, which was rebuilding after the Civil War and investing in large internal projects such as the reconstruction of the Great Wall and the construction of the Forbidden City, felt the financial burden of these maritime ventures. The growing threat of the Mongols on the land borders also diverted the empire's attention and resources. The Mongols, although they had been expelled from China by the Ming, continued to be a constant threat on the northern borders. Defense against nomadic incursions required massive investment in troops and fortifications, diverting resources from the navy. China's traditional priority was terrestrial security, not maritime power projection. Furthermore, there was growing internal opposition to the expeditions from conservative factions at the imperial court, especially Confucian officials. Confucians, who valued internal stability, agriculture, and social order, viewed maritime trade and foreign expeditions with suspicion. They considered merchants an inferior class and saw Zheng He's voyages as a waste of resources and a violation of Confucian principles of self-sufficiency and isolation. They argued that China, as the celestial empire, did not need to seek the outside world, as it already possessed everything necessary. The death of the Yongle Emperor in 1424 was a fatal blow to the expeditions. Yongle had been Zheng He's main patron and the visionary behind the voyages. His successors, the Yangtze Emperor and the Xuande Emperor, although initially maintaining some of Yongle's policies, were more inclined towards an isolationist approach and a focus on internal affairs. The decline of Zheng He's expeditions was not a sudden event, but a gradual process driven by economic, political, and ideological factors that would eventually lead to the end of the era of Chinese maritime exploration. The death of the Yongle Emperor in 1424 marked the beginning of a drastic change in the Ming dynasty's foreign policy. His successors, the Hongxi Emperor, who reigned for only 1 year, and the Xuande Emperor, although initially maintaining some of Yongle's policies, were more inclined toward an isolationist approach and a focus on internal affairs. The vision of China as a global maritime power, which had been the driving force behind Zheng He's expeditions, began to be abandoned in favor of a policy of self-sufficiency and defense of land borders. The high cost of the expeditions continued to be a powerful argument for the opponents of the voyages. The resources being spent on the navy could be used to strengthen land defenses against the Mongols, to rebuild the Great Wall, and to invest in internal projects. The imperial bureaucracy, dominated by Confucian officials, viewed the expeditions as a waste of money and a violation of governing principles. The Mongol threat on the northern borders was a constant concern. The Mongols, although they had been expelled from China, continued to be a force to be reckoned with, and their incursions were a real threat. Defense against this threat required massive investment in troops and fortifications, which diverted resources from the navy. China's traditional priority was terrestrial security, not maritime power projection.
Furthermore, there was growing distrust of eunuchs. Eunuchs, who had achieved great power and influence under the Yongle Emperor, were seen by many Confucian officials as a threat to imperial order and the bureaucracy's authority. Zheng He's expeditions, which were led by a eunuch, became an easy target for criticism and opposition. The shift in imperial policy was gradual but decisive. Maritime expeditions were reduced in frequency and scale, and eventually they were completely halted. China, which had been the greatest naval power in the world, withdrew from the global maritime scene, leaving the way open for other powers to explore and dominate the oceans. This decision, although controversial, would shape the future of China and the world.
After leading 6 major maritime expeditions to the Western Oceans, Zheng He, the legendary admiral and explorer, embarked on his 7th and final voyage in 1431. He was already an old man, over 60, and his health, weakened by decades of travel and service to the empire, was beginning to decline. However, his determination to fulfill his mission and serve the emperor was unwavering. The 7th expedition followed previous routes, visiting ports in Southeast Asia, India, and the Middle East. Zheng He continued to establish diplomatic relations, promote trade, and collect tribute. His presence and the grandeur of his fleet still commanded respect and admiration. However, his health was rapidly deteriorating. In 1433, during the return journey of the 7th expedition, Zheng He passed away. His death occurred at sea, likely near the coast of Calicut, India. His crew buried him at sea, as was customary for sailors, but some of his belongings were taken back to China and interred in a symbolic tomb near Nanjing.
Zheng He's death marked the end of an era. He was the last great admiral of Ming China, the man who had led the largest maritime expeditions in history, and who had projected China's power and influence throughout the world. His departure left an immense void in Chinese naval leadership, and his vision of China as a global maritime power would not be continued by his successors. Zheng He's death, combined with growing internal opposition to the expeditions, sealed the fate of the treasure fleet. The ships were gradually dismantled, and the records of the voyages were destroyed.
China withdrew from the global maritime scene, leaving the way open for other powers to explore and dominate the oceans. The man who had opened the world to China had departed, and China once again closed itself off from the world.
After the death of the Yongle Emperor and Zheng He, the isolationist policy of the Ming Dynasty solidified, leading to an act of cultural and historical self-sabotage, the destruction of the records of the maritime expeditions. This decision, driven by conservative factions at the imperial court, aimed to erase the memory of Zheng He's voyages and divert naval resources to other priorities. The Confucian officials, who had opposed the expeditions from the beginning, viewed Zheng He's voyages as a waste of resources, a violation of Confucian principles, and a source of corruption and foreign influence. They argued that China, as the celestial empire, did not need to seek the outside world, as it already possessed everything necessary. Their vision was of a self-sufficient and inward-looking China. By the mid-15th century, the records of Zheng He's expeditions were systematically destroyed. The maps, logbooks, reports, and documents detailing the routes, destinations, and discoveries of the voyages were burned or hidden. This destruction of records was a deliberate act of forgetting, an attempt to erase the memory of an era of exploration and maritime power projection.
The destruction of the records had profound consequences. It hindered the understanding of the extent and importance of Zheng He's expeditions for future generations. Much information about his voyages was lost forever, making his history an enigma and a topic of debate among historians. It also contributed to the decline of Chinese naval technology, as the knowledge and experience accumulated during the expeditions were lost. The decision to destroy the records was a reflection of the Ming Dynasty's isolationist mindset. China, which had been the greatest naval power in the world, withdrew from the global maritime scene, leaving the way open for other powers to explore and dominate the oceans. The forgetting of a past glory was an act of self-isolation that would shape the future of China and the world. Zheng He's legacy is, therefore, a controversial one, marked by glory, lost opportunities, and a debate about what could have been. He was one of the greatest explorers and admirals in history, a man who led the largest maritime expeditions of his time, and who projected China's power and influence throughout the world. However, his vision was not continued by his successors, and China withdrew from the global maritime scene. The debate about what could have been is one of the most fascinating aspects of Zheng He's legacy. If China had continued its maritime expeditions, it could have become the greatest naval and colonial power in the world, long before the arrival of European explorers. The history of colonization and global trade could have taken a completely different turn, with China at the center of a vast network of maritime empires. However, the decision to end the expeditions was motivated by complex factors, including high costs, the Mongol threat, and Confucian opposition. China, with its vast population and internal resources, did not feel the same need to explore and conquer the outside world as European powers did. Its vision was that of a self-sufficient and inward-looking land empire.
Zheng He's legacy is a reminder of lost opportunities and the choices that shape the course of history. He demonstrated China's potential to be a global maritime power, but his vision was not continued by his successors. His story invites reflection on the decisions empires make and how those decisions can have lasting consequences for the future.
The controversy surrounding his legacy also extends to his own figure. He was a Muslim eunuch who achieved great power and influence in the Chinese imperial court, a man who transcended social and cultural barriers. His story is a testament to an individual's ability to overcome adversity and leave an indelible mark on history. Zheng He's legacy is an enigma, a reminder of what China was and what it could have been.
The journey through Zheng He brings us to a fundamental question. How do we separate the historical man from the myth that surrounds him? The figure of Zheng He is so intertwined with legend and controversy that it is challenging to discern the facts of his life from the deeds attributed to him over the centuries. The destruction of the maritime expedition records by conservative factions in the Ming court contributed to the enigmatic character of his figure. Much information about his voyages was lost forever, making his history a puzzle and a topic of debate among historians. This absence of complete primary sources opens space for the proliferation of legends and speculations about his deeds. Regardless of its exact historicity, the fact is that the myth of Zheng He has become as powerful as the man himself. He is the Muslim eunuch who rose to unprecedented power, the admiral who led the largest fleets of his time, and the explorer who reached distant lands. His figure has become a symbol of China's ability to project power and explore the world. The enigma of Zheng He lies in his ability to transcend history and become a living legend, a name that echoes through the centuries, inspiring fascination and admiration.
Zheng He's impact on Chinese culture and global historiography is profound, especially after the rediscovery of his importance in recent centuries. Although his memory was suppressed for centuries in China, his expeditions left an indelible mark on the cultures of the countries he visited and were later rediscovered and celebrated. In China, Zheng He's story was largely forgotten or marginalized for centuries due to the Ming dynasty's isolationist policy and distrust of eunuchs. However, in the 20th century, with the resurgence of Chinese nationalism and interest in its maritime history, Zheng He was rediscovered and celebrated as a national hero, a symbol of China's maritime glory. His figure is now widely recognized and studied, and his achievements are taught in schools. In the cultures of Southeast Asia, India, and East Africa, the memory of Zheng He and his expeditions remained alive through legends, temples dedicated to him, and local records. He is remembered as a peaceful diplomat, a fair merchant, and an explorer who brought prosperity and knowledge. His figure is viewed with respect and admiration, a contrast to the image of other explorers and conquerors.
In global historiography, Zheng's legacy has been the subject of intense debate. Some historians argue that his expeditions were an example of how China could have become the greatest naval and colonial power in the world long before the arrival of European explorers. Others emphasize the diplomatic and tributary nature of his voyages, in contrast to the conquering nature of European explorations. The debate about what could have been continues to fascinate and inspire new research. Zheng He's impact on culture and historiography is a testament to the importance of his figure and his expeditions. He is a reminder that history is complex and that narratives can be shaped by different perspectives. His rediscovery and celebration in modern China are a sign of his lasting relevance.
The figure of Zheng He, although relatively unknown in the West for centuries, has experienced a remarkable resurgence in global popular culture in recent decades. Far from being just a character in Chinese history, Zheng He has become an icon of exploration, a symbol of adventure, and an era of maritime grandeur. His image has been popularized in documentaries, books, television series, and films,
which explore his expeditions and his legacy. He is portrayed as a visionary admiral, a shrewd diplomat, and a courageous explorer who led the largest fleets of his time. His story, with its gigantic ships and voyages to exotic lands, captivates the imagination of audiences around the world. Zheng He has also inspired video games, comics, and works of fiction which portray him as a hero of exploration and a symbol of humanity's ability to overcome limits. His figure is often associated with technological innovation, diplomacy, and the peaceful projection of power, in contrast to the more aggressive nature of European explorations.
Zheng He's popularity in global popular culture reflects a continuing fascination with a history of exploration and with figures who challenge the limits of the known world. He is an archetype of the explorer who seeks knowledge, establishes relationships, and expands humanity's horizons. His image is often associated with curiosity, courage, and an individual's ability to leave an indelible mark on history. Zheng He's presence in global popular culture ensures that his legend continues to be told and to inspire new generations, reminding us of an era when China was a global maritime power and of a man who dared to explore the vast oceans.
Zheng He, the treasure admiral, the Muslim eunuch who led the largest fleets of his time and projected China's power and influence throughout the maritime world. His life was an epic saga of exploration, diplomacy, and destiny, a testament to the power of a visionary leader. He taught us that an empire's greatness can be measured not only by its military conquests, but by its ability to relate to the world through commerce, culture, and peace. Zheng He's story is a reminder of lost opportunities and the choices that shape the course of history. China, which he helped connect with the world, would embark on a new chapter of its history, facing the challenges of isolationism, European expansion, and the search for a new identity.